Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm Ryan Heckman, the CEO of Rally Day Partners, and this is the Founder's Journey podcast. We'll explore the heart and soul of great founders and their journey to build the company of their dreams. You will learn about new industries and business models while discovering how to apply the founder's mindset to your everyday work and life. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Founder's Journey podcast, coming to you from Denver, Colorado, right after the long July 4th weekend. I think we're all grateful for that time off, kind of a mid-year halftime for some of us as we reflect on the first half of the year and hopefully take stock of all that we have accomplished and get ready for the second half. The second half seems to go by really fast, at least for me. And so I cherish the July 4th weekend, and I hope you did as well. Hope you also get to spend time with loved ones. We're welcoming a very, very special leader, Poornima Ramaswamy. Poornima is the founder and CEO of PivotX Advisors. It's an AI data consulting firm, and I'm sure she's going to correct me with the right nomenclature. Of all the people at Rally Day, I am the resident clueless person when it comes to all things technology. So my first, thing is I would like to ask for forgiveness already for me butchering your industry, Poornima, and then permission to do so because I don't want to be uptight about me being such a novice. But I want to welcome you to our podcast, and I'm just so very honored that you're here.
Thank you, Ryan. I'm honored to be here as well, and humbled also that you invited me to this podcast. Happy to be here.
Great. Well, I'll give the listeners a little idea of how we met. Poornima is the newest board member of one of our portfolio companies called LiveFront. LiveFront is an app development business based in Minneapolis, has a dozen very high-profile clients and, of course, many more, but has been on the forefront of making apps much more consumer-centric and intuitive, founded by Mike Bollinger. Poornima briefed our board about, I think it was 3 or 4 months ago, on all things data and AI. And it was one of those moments where I thought to myself, it was only 45 minutes to an hour, I want to say. And I was like, I just want one more hour with Poornima, just one more hour. And so this podcast is a manifestation of just wanting more. I wanted the sequel to the first half. I think what makes Poornima special, among other things, I'll try to give a list here, but she can take the most complex concepts and bring them into simple terms that really make sense. It's, I think, one of the hallmarks of her career when you talk to people who have worked with Poornima over the years is just her ability to bridge engineering teams to the C-suite, to consumers and other users of the data, and be that swivel chair, as I've heard it called, where she is able to bridge all of those disparate groups into incredible productivity. Other thing that makes Poornima very special, she grew up in India, in a smaller place in the south. Did you actually grow up in Tamil Nadu?
Yes, I grew up in Chennai.
In Chennai, okay. So she went to her undergrad at Tamil Nadu, and what's unique about Tamil Nadu, among other things, is one, it's incredibly well educated. I think it is the most educated city in all of India, perhaps. 100% of its residents are either in college or in high school, and it's pretty impressive. It's also the Tamil language is, I think, the oldest language of any language in the world. And I don't know if I have that fact quite right, Poornima.
There are a lot of claims. I really don't know. I think Sanskrit is possibly older. I may be wrong. I know my brethren in the Tamil world will yell and scream at me for saying that, but
well, in any event, it's much older than English, and it's got an incredibly rich heritage. Poornima really became, I guess, the amazing leader she is through her many years at Cognizant, very large IT consulting firm. I think around 350,000 employees, if I'm not mistaken. She then went down market to a company with roughly 2,500 employees, I want to say, at Click. She was there for 3 years, and she's been following this arc to small. And we're gonna get to the moment where Poornima decided, you know what, I'm just gonna start my own business at PivotX Advisors. But it's just, if you ask anybody in the AI and data world who is a thought leader in this space, Poornima is one of those sage Jedis and is in high demand, both in terms of consulting to Fortune 100 companies all the way down to the middle market. And for that, I'm grateful for you joining Livefront and just super excited to explore your journey, Poornima. So maybe we could start with your time in India and how you grew up and how you got ultimately into these two great university programs that you enrolled in, and how you got to the United States.
Sure. Yeah. I was actually born in Mumbai. My parents were working there, and I was born into a joint family, which is a concept of not just your parents and your siblings, but an extended family, siblings of your parents. So I was born into a joint family of 12 members. I was the youngest in my generation. So, and, but I enjoyed the perks of being the youngest. I could do whatever I want. I could say whatever I want and get away with it. Add to it that I was puny as well. I'm still petite, if you've seen me. So I took full advantage of all of that. I had a really brilliant childhood because even though I have only one sibling, it felt like I had a lot of siblings and I had a lot of parents. Thrived in that environment, then moved to Chennai, did my schooling there. Believe it or no, I was not a great student. I was not academically inclined. I just wanted to have fun. And I got into a bachelor's of science, specialized in mathematics, because that was what I got, not because I wanted it. I went to see what I could get into, and this is what was available. Because if there was one line my dad was drawing for all of us kids, not just my sister and I have one sibling, but for all of us kids who grew up together, is you get into whatever you get into through merit. And he was not going to pay a dime over and above, the regular fees, because in India you have this concept of paying capitation fees and additional fees to get into your chosen discipline. He was like, nope, you put in the hard work and you get what you get. If you don't put in the hard work and you don't get in anywhere, that's fine. Go wash dishes. Right. So got into university. That's when I started getting a little more serious about what I wanted to do. And I was interested in my bachelor's degree. They had a course in accounts as an optional course. And I took that and I topped the university in accounts, even though that was not a specialization. I really got interested in it and I wanted to get into the business side of things. And my dad's brother is into, he loved to study. He kept studying till I think he was mid 40s or so. And he is the one who advised me about this course in Hyderabad. They actually have a branch in Chennai. That's where I joined, even though it's a Hyderabad university. So it's a combined integrated course of MBA and a degree in finance that I did. And as a part of MBA, I could specialize in IT. So I did an IT and finance degree of MBA. It's called PGDBA. And then I went into a Tata company for my first job. And that's how I got into IT. And because they did campus recruitment, they pulled us into this group called Decision Support Systems, which is what data and AI used to be called back in the day. And that's how I got into the data space. And I've stayed in that space forever. I joined Cognizant 3 years after that. And I almost think about it as joining Cognizant when I was a kindergartner. And then I graduated out of Cognizant 19 years later to go and join Click as a Chief Transformation Officer before I started PivotX Advisors last year.
I was just going to say, let's double click on your time at Cognizant, but that would be too much of a play on words. But let's do so. Did you start at Cognizant in India or did you start at Cognizant in the United States?
In India.
Okay.
I joined in India and then through them, I came to the US.
In over 19 years, I'm wondering, I'm sure you won't know it right to the number, but directionally, how big was Cognizant when you joined them and how big was it when you left?
I know my practice, we were about 200 people when I joined the data and AI practice. And when I left, we were about 22,000 just in data and AI. Right?
Holy smokes.
Yes. So it was a great experience. I'll not trade that experience for anything. I won't change anything in my in that part of my life or any part of my life for that matter.
And when did you transfer from India to the United States within Cognizant's corporate structure?
So interestingly, I was traveling Actually, prior to Cognizant, while at Tata Infotech, I kept traveling to Europe, to Switzerland specifically for a specific customer engagement. And so I already had started traveling. And when I joined Cognizant, they used to ask me to travel to the US primarily every 3 months. So I'll come for 3 months, be here, do projects, go back for a month, then they'll send me back for another project. At that point, my mom basically said, I'm not unpacking your suitcases. You can just keep it there. And in 2004, I realized that I was neither here, I was neither building a life here, nor was I building a life there. So I said, let me just move here and build my career in the US. So I moved in 2004, and I kept moving states even over here. I started in Illinois, then I went to Jersey. I think somewhere in between, I went to Florida, then I went to California, then Seattle, and then Boston.
Well, let's use your time at Cognizant as a way to maybe bring us up to speed where AI is today. I'm guessing early days it was just data, but maybe you could walk us through your arc at Cognizant and how it relates to the arc of AI and how we got here, which seems so spectacular for most of us. And I'm sure for you, it just seems so evolutionary over so many years that it may not have the punch appeal to you. But tell us about the data journey for you, starting from the beginning to where it is today.
Sure. Yeah. Great question. Actually, it used to be called MIS. I think in some banks, they still call it as MIS, right? Management Information Systems. But back in the day when I joined Cognizant, we were called the DSS practice, Decision Support Systems. And at that time, it was more about just data and then, getting your look back reports, right? How did the business perform? What happened, basically, right? And then, but interestingly, even at that time and till now, the passion I have for data remains. That's also because it has evolved, back to your point, every 2 to 3 years, right? So it went from decision support systems to data and BI. Business intelligence got added to it. So decision support systems became data and BI. Then it became data warehouse and BI. And then we added this factor called performance management, which is corporate performance management, right? Your financial planning that you do at a company level, sales planning, all of that was called as corporate planning. That was a new area that was sitting outside. There were products out there that then started integrating with data and BI, because a big part of corporate planning is not the planning part, it's the data, the reporting, understanding the forecasts, understanding the projections, and then seeing whether how you perform against that plan itself. So it became DW, BI, and PM. So we started adding acronyms. We started complicating
That's just so perfect for us business people. It just confuses us even more. It becomes
exactly.
an eye chart.
Yeah. then then that's when we started saying, no, we need to start thinking about advanced analytics. So you had the evolution of products like Tableau and Click that came in to say you don't need IT. You can just create these, easy dashboards, and we make it really easy. And the product vendors started selling to business directly. So then of course, the data people didn't want to sit out of that market. So they said, no, 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 we can also do it. So it became data warehousing, BI, then PM, and then we said we'll do advanced analytics. That's when the time, after that is when you had appliances coming, which is earlier you used to have only the database layer, it was an application, the hardware was separate. But then you had product vendors like IBM and Teradata. Teradata had just started coming in. They said, no, we actually bring you a box that's an appliance. You just plug it in and voila, everything starts working. Right. So that's when the Teradata world started coming in. And then in you come the West Coast companies are saying, look at big data. Right. So the big data wave started evolving. When big data took off, machine learning started coming into play as well. So this is about 2015, 2016 as such. And so then everyone was like, why this Teradata thing? Let me look at Cloudera, Hortonworks, MapR. These were the products. Then that happened. 3 years later, you had the cloud vendors who started coming in, right? And machine learning started evolving more because both the technology evolved and you had more data to do more training of the machine learning models itself. So IBM first started that with Watson, and they did all of us a huge service of making Watson like this jazzy thing because of the Jeopardy game. And all I still remember certain customers used to say, I want that thing. They didn't know what they were asking for. They're like, I want that Jeopardy thing, that Watson thing. But that Watson thing was not what enterprises could use. So that's when Microsoft started coming up with their services. AWS came up with their services. Google made a big foray into machine learning, and so on. And by then, interestingly, the Hadoop market started coming down because the cloud vendors started, picking up steam, and consolidation happened there, which means it was huge services opportunity to help customers move to the next thing. So we moved to all of that machine learning world, and then which is when like you come to 2022 December and ChatGPT and Gen AI sprung into action. Machine learning till then, it became really popular for 2 or 3 years in between, when IBM first spoke about Jeopardy and showed how it could beat human beings and so on. After that, it grew a little bit, it tapered, it plateaued, and now again, you see the buzz around Gen AI and AI.
I mean, for a layperson like myself, machine learning to me just looks like a very rapid way of searching a database and coming up with an answer. Is there more to it than that?
It's learning based on action and interaction rather than coding it, right? It learns based on the data that it sees, infers from that, and then think about it like a child, right? A baby actually learns from us. I have my nephew, he sees us on the phone and he sees us swipe the phone. I'm sure your kids, or younger kids right now, actually babies, not the 12-year-olds and the 15-year-olds, but babies, they learn from that action. So think about the machine learning model as that it's learning from our action and saying this is good, this is bad, this is good, this is bad, and it starts sorting it out, right? Because when a kid does something that you don't want it to do, we all admonish the kid. So it either learns the good thing that it should not do it, or says, okay, you know what, this gives me pleasure, I'm going to do it. I know these people are going to be objecting, but how can I do it in a sneaky manner? That's your hallucination, not hallucination. That's the sneak attacks that happen on models, right? So think about your machine learning models as that. You're not giving a playbook to a kid to say what is good and bad. It's learning based on observation.
And the more the user uses it, the better it gets at
It's learning your habits.
acquiring.
Yeah,
Okay.
right. That's how you customize it to your habits. Otherwise, it's learning based on generic habits that it's observing from the world.
A further digression, you mentioned IBM several times. And, for those of us who grew up maybe at our youngest ages, really admiring this business that started desktop computing, you could say, it seems like everything that IBM has ever started, they've lost. And yet we wouldn't be here without them. From your set of eyes and where you've been at Cognizant, among other places, why is it that IBM led the way in so many areas and yet has never demanded the same valuation as some of these other companies that take what they've built and invented and exploited that? What's the deal with that?
This is an opinion that I'm stating, right? Not because I have facts to back it up, not because I know them deeply and so on. An observation and an opinion based on those observations. I think it goes back to two factors. One, constantly uh, being worried about your competition and not taking things for granted and the market for granted. And the second is constantly wanting to learn and innovate, right? So I think that IBM, or many companies that became big at one point, feel like because they became big and they defined a market, they can command that market forever. Whereas that's not the case, right? And then you start becoming arrogant in your own head, in your own attitude and your own outlook, and don't want to reshape your thinking, continuously innovate, learn. The second is I also think they became too big. At least in the business circles, I've heard this quite a few times of saying, let's not become an IBM, which indicates that they're just too big, unwieldy, can't move fast enough in the market, in the field, even though they might be innovating a lot. How do you make sure that the entire organization can embrace the new? It comes down to a lot of things, your incentive model, your operating model, and all of that stuff, but they're just too big to be able to affect that change at that scale and speed relative to how fast the market is moving. So I think it's those factors that have, where it's not allowed them to reach their potential with every new innovation they've come up with.
Yeah, it's just an amazing corporate story. And what I'm hearing you say is it's a form of growth mindset for an organization that they somehow lost.
Yeah.
And like the federal government, maybe started to select strategies based on structure instead of picking a strategy and creating a structure to serve the strategy.
Yeah. Yeah. I completely agree with you. I like that framing.
And at Cognizant, given the growth there, and perhaps a nice segue, there was some day, I'm guessing, or some moment where after you had become a celebrated, I would say revered executive at Cognizant, that you decided to go to Click. Tell us about that moment, because I'm guessing that was a little scary. I mean, Click wasn't the mature Cognizant, and thankfully wasn't mature IBM either. It's certainly on the other end of the spectrum. What was that moment? Maybe who inspired you to take the plunge into a smaller company? What was going on in your life?
So I had my boss had just quit. He was a global head of the practice. I was running North America. I had my boss, myself, and a few of us together had actually built the practice from early days, right? From that 200 to 22,000. I had a hand in playing in setting up every function by getting into that function, building it up, maturing it, then moving to the next function and the next function and next function. There had come a time when I either had to take his role or do something else. So I applied for his role. The company wanted to take a different direction, and they wanted me to continue doing what I was doing. But at that point, I recognized that I could do my job in my sleep. I would what would take people about 8 hours to do, I could finish it in like 3 hours, because I knew how to navigate the company. I had seen these patterns before, so I knew how to address situations, customer needs, and so on. What scared me was I had stopped learning. Right, there was nothing challenging me within the environment. So, and I had faced this once before in my career while at Cognizant. I went for a client meeting for it's a healthcare client. I used to do business development at that time. And we had to run a 4-hour workshop on data governance. And the consulting head was supposed to travel from India for that meeting. He couldn't. He had a family emergency. So he said, I'll be on the phone. Why don't you go and run the workshop? I'd never done data governance at all. So I actually sat and read a book on data governance 3 days before that, and went into the meeting, because till then I could go and position and ask for the meeting, but I didn't have to actually talk about the topic at a deeper level. So I went there. 3 hours and 45 minutes of that meeting went really well. Right? The last 15 minutes, the customer asked me a question which I didn't know how to answer because I hadn't lived that life. Right? And I hadn't thought about it as much. So all my previous meetings, I used to just let others do the thinking. My role was just getting the meeting. That gave me a wake up call that I'd stopped trying to challenge myself and learning. Right? So I felt the same. I felt like I was at the same point in 2019, saying, hey, you know what? It's become too easy. I'm not feeling challenged. I can do this in my sleep, and that's not good for my career, because I'm in the outsourcing business, but that does not mean you outsource your thinking. But I was getting to a point where it felt like I was outsourcing my thinking. Right. So I said, no, I need to get back into an uncomfortable zone. So there were two things I decided at that time. I said, I'm not going to go into a big company, and I'm not going to go into a services company. And three things. And the third, I want to stay in data and AI. Because back to the point on the industry, in all of those 20 years of being in, or 22 by then, of being in the data space, the one thing that was constant was data was always on the top 5 priorities for CIO in terms of spend every year in those 20 years, 22 years. Right? It had never stopped in terms of priority. It had never stopped evolving, right? Innovating. There was always something new to learn and, new to offer to customers in terms of progress. So I said, I'm going to stay in the data space. I don't want a big company. I don't want to be in services, but I wanted to challenge myself. Mike Capone, the CEO of Click, great exec, he had known me through my Cognizant days because I was the exec sponsor for our Click relationship. And he knew that I was looking for a change. And he asked if I'd like to join his leadership team. Actually, they're not a young company, they're a 30-year-old company as well, Swedish heritage, really great culture, very similar culture to Cognizant, which is, I'd say I've been very fortunate to have been in two cultures that were amazing, right? So I joined Mike Capone's leadership team, and that was like it was like starting from scratch because back to one of the podcasts that I heard over there, I just been given the title of a strategic client advisor. I hadn't earned it, and I knew I had to earn my stripes at Click. And in my head, I was starting from day zero there, right? Or stage one in my career. I was back in kindergarten, and I had to earn my way to that title.
Where was the headquarters, Poornima?
They are in King of Prussia, but they have a Swedish heritage in but right now the U.S. headquarters is King of Prussia, or the
Okay.
global headquarters is King of Prussia.
And in so many words, what was your mandate from Mike? What was the catalyst that he was looking for? What was the outcome that he was looking to achieve from your leadership?
It's a very interesting question. Um, so Mike approached me because I'm a very customer centric person. What I love to do is being in front of customers, right, and living their lives, understanding what they're trying to do, and then shaping solutions to that. So he wanted me to bring that mindset to Click, and my initial mandate was to take our top 50 customers at Click and help expand our presence there, right? Click is a end-to-end data and analytics platform company. But then COVID happened. I joined in February 2020, and COVID happened in May, or the world shut down in May, at least for us. And so we couldn't. Everyone was cash strapped, cash constrained. We couldn't stand up a brand new team because this was a brand new team. There was no function like this at Click, or I don't think any customer or any other product company also had a function like this. So what I ended up my journey at Click has been so unique. I was possibly the only change agent at a leadership level, so I took different functions within Click. So whichever area needed strengthening, Mike will give it to me and say, hey, can you help reshape this, transform this, and then we move it back to where it needs to be. So I help in professional services. I helped in transform our channel business, the SI and the systems integration and technology partnership program was under me, so helped strengthen that. Then I became the chief transformation officer for Click, so internal AI and data was reporting into me. So by then I had done data and AI from a consulting perspective, advising customers, but only helping them with half the story, if you may, right? Because the remaining half the customer has to do on their own. Then I looked at it from a product perspective, from a product vendor perspective. Then I became my own customer when AI and data for internal transformation started rolling up to me. That's when I realized that we were only painting half the story when I was a consultant, right? And I at that point I wished that there were consulting firms that would think for me and truly live in my shoes. So when I had the opportunity to think about my career in 2023, I said, I want to go back to services because I love product companies, but they have a walled garden. They have a defined scope, which is great, right? But in a services company, you can actually help solve for the entire problem. And I said, I wanted to start a different kind of a services firm in the data and AI space, being true to myself and what I'm passionate about and what I know, but become that vendor that can live my customers' shoes, not just only partner, but live in their shoes, think on their behalf, and say, if I were to run this shop, how would I do it? And I'm going to do it so that I don't get fired and I'm successful. So if I could become that kind of services and solutions provider and advisor for my clients, it would have been great for me while I was at Click.
And again, a moment of discomfort. I mean, the ultimate discomfort, if I could say as much, at least as an executive, is going down market from Cognizant to Click and then from Click to basically zero. Talk about a pivot. I mean, Who did you talk to about that? And were there any naysayers? Were there people who were supporting you, giving you courage? That's a pretty scary time in anyone's life, and very few people choose that form of discomfort as an executive, especially after such a storied career as yours.
So there's one best friend of mine who's been there with me throughout all of these transitions. So he's an advisor for me at PivotX as well, external advisor. So I used to discuss a lot of these things with him. One thing about me, and I've never realized it, only when I look back, I realize it. Whenever opportunities present itself, I have never looked at the negative side. I've only looked at, what's the positive in it? Why should I do it? And then I just jump in and say, let me figure it out. And an example, at Cognizant, when I was doing business development, I'd never run a P&L. And the largest P&L within data practice was financial services. My boss came and said, do you want to run that P&L? I said, yeah, sure, why not? I had no clue what I was saying yes to. I said, yeah, sure, why not? So when Mike Capone came to me and asked me, and then I was evaluating an opportunity with EY, I was only very clear that I didn't want to go into a larger company, right? And so for me, EY was a big company, and I wanted a smaller company. So when Mike came and said, I said, yeah, why not? Let me just try it. And if I don't like it, I said, I can always go back to something else. So I think it was stupidity maybe, but I've always just jumped in and said, let me figure it out, right? So the other attitude I've had, thankfully, which has helped me and it served me well, is through all of the transitions, be it coming from India to the US, settling down into the US. And I think it comes from my mother, is like, don't look back and say, woulda, coulda, shoulda, and what you're missing. Look at what's in front of you and learn to enjoy it and learn to like it, learn to embrace it, right? So that's not a conscious attitude I take, but that's my attitude. I don't know any different, if you may.
That's your default.
Yeah, yeah. So when I joined Click, I really loved the culture. I loved the people. That made a huge difference. I was very aware that I didn't have a clue what I was doing there, because I didn't know what ARR meant. I'd never come across the term. I was coming across new terms and new business models every day, every hour, in fact. But I had a great support system over there that was patient with me and helped me learn it. So I'll ever be grateful to Click and Cognizant, of course.
And with the PivotX decision, yeah, I mean, I find it hard to believe you didn't have any fear, Poornima. What were some of those fears, and how did you overcome them?
I did have fears for sure, right? The fear was and is still, for instance, whether I can hustle, whether I have it in me to hustle. Because I'd been into environments where there were people who were clearing the way for me because I had the title. Or at Cognizant, for instance, I had the track record, right? So, but over here, I was the brand, I had to sell, I had to deliver, I had to prove. And I knew through my Click experience, I knew the brand that you represent is 70% of, or 85% of business. Your brand is only about 15% at best, right? So there was no brand. PivotX is a brand that I'm building right now, right? So that fear definitely was there. But the other fear was fear of missing out, of saying, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it.
Competing fears.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess the fear of missing out won over and I jumped in.
It's so funny. I mean, for me at least, the fear of missing out would manifest during the daytime. The fear of failing would manifest at night, at 2 a.m. Do you have any of that? The day and night demons?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Every 3 days I'm stressing over stuff, and then I'm like, yeah, no, that's okay. We'll figure it out. every
But
every 2 or 3 days, yes.
yeah. I don't know any founder who ever feels like they're successful. It's a paradox, but it would appear to me, based on working with entrepreneurs now for this is my 27th year, that there's something just perpetually dissatisfying for a founder. And maybe it just has to do with the gravity, the scale of their dream is always so big that it's impossible to get there. And if they're even close, then the dream becomes something even more. And it's, always the next big thing. Paint us a picture for what you wanted PivotX to be. And let's go out maybe 5 to 10 years. Let's give it enough time to get through the sloppy start, as we say, the messy middle. Let's get to when it's got traction. And let's just say you were a painter and you were going to paint this picture of what was the strategy, what was the service suite, what are your customers saying about you or clients saying about you, what do your employees say about you? Paint us a masterpiece called PivotX for us, if you don't mind.
So I want PivotX Advisors in 10 years' time to be, I have great respect for McKinsey, but the McKinsey for data and AI, right? But not just on strategy, but the North Star for representing where the industry is going and helping them get there, right? That's the ultimate goal for me. It does not, I'm not defining it by size, because for me, quality is more important than quantity. I think there are too many services companies today that are focused on quantity in terms of number of people and so on and so forth. But we are a Gen AI born company, which means we are driving the business to be more nimble, more agile, using technology, which means it's the quality of output with lesser number of people, but more productive people today, right?
And
So
in terms of client type, are you going after large Fortune 100 companies, the middle market, or emerging companies? Where do you find the greatest need and the greatest opportunity?
the opportunity is there up and down that range that you said, but I'm very aware that we are small right now, that the large enterprises will possibly not want to entertain a small startup. So we are going after emerging and mid-market, but not just looking at end customers, but product companies as well, because we do believe that product companies can they can retool their entire business and operating model with data and AI and become more productive, smarter as enterprises.
And this was when the universe says, "I told you, Click would be a good move for you, Poornima."
Yeah. There's so much you can learn from product companies and services companies, to see. There's so much they can learn from each other.
Well, let's go into the AI world. I mean, I'm probably very similar to a lot of middle market leaders, where I definitely read more about it than I do anything about it, and it's kind of a paradox. I have a fear, I suppose, that only large organizations can invest the kind of money to create solutions inside their organizations to boost productivity, really, and that the middle market will be left behind for some time before our applications are designed for the masses, so to speak. Is there any, I mean, that's a very pessimistic view, I should add. But I guess a lot of middle market CEOs that are in our portfolio struggle with I know it's a big deal. I know I need to do it. I just don't know how to start. And I'm not sure what this means. I'm not sure if I should be cutting my IT budgets elsewhere and using some of those budgets for AI, or if I should wait for applications to be designed for me at a later date. I'm sure you hear this a lot. How would you answer that calling?
So I'd say whether you like it or not, you are doing AI already. There is shadow AI in your organization if you're a mid-market CEO, right? So the first thing is to understand that what it's all, where it's already being used. If anyone's used Google, anyone's used Maps, you're using Adobe, there is AI in there already, right? So I'd say for execs, it's important to understand how it is being used in your organization today. And first of all, allowing your employees to come out of the shadow if they're using it, if they're using ChatGPT and so on, create the security blanket to allow them, security blanket digitally, secure the company, but also give them the latitude to be able to use it, right? And through that, you actually understand the role and the improvement it can bring to your organizations. So the first step is acknowledging. The second step is getting a better understanding, right? The market is maturing so rapidly, it's innovating so rapidly. There are a lot of tools, productivity tools out there at a minimum for every function outside of the core, that you can then start looking at how do you bring in some of that productivity tools into your organization to help your organization itself, right? Through those experiments and those forays, you are going to understand the possibilities, right? Because again, I'll take the analogy of kids. If they learn one trick one day, they're going to try and learn the same trick in a parallel scenario if they think it looks similar, right? It's the same thing. If we think that we've been able to automate or augment the human in a particular user journey, or a business journey, you can look at similarities of those business journeys and other functions to say, okay, is there something out there that's already available, or can I actually start experimenting with the possibilities, right? But I think those baby steps are first acknowledging that there is shadow AI happening, letting it come out of the shadows, creating a secure environment, getting an understanding of what it is doing in the before and after picture, and how that after picture got created, what did it do. Then it allows you to start thinking about saying, what more could it do for my organization, right? I think my community in terms of data AI, be it consultants, analysts, we like to create this impression of FOMO, of saying you're the only one who's not doing it, everyone else is doing it. But if it makes people feel good, I read this, I don't know if you saw this latest Sequoia report that came out, I think this week or last week, where they're saying that it's a $600 billion question, revenue gap question, because every company that's invested in AI infrastructure, it's mainly the hyperscalers and the big vendors, they're not seeing the returns. So unless we create applications that are more value generating for the end user, the end customer, the end business user, there's the ROI. Basically, they are saying we are heading into an AI bubble, right? So you don't have to feel like you're missing out on anything, because I think everyone is sitting it out or waiting for it. There's still a lot to be done in terms of bridging the gap between perception and reality.
Yeah, I mean, the statistics are just unbelievable. I mean, this morning, I think it was this morning or it was yesterday, in the second quarter alone, there was $55 billion invested into AI alone. And to put some perspective on that, I looked back, and in 2000, the year before the dot-com crash, the total for the year was like 125 billion across all VC investing for the year. And this is 55 billion into one little sector called AI in one quarter.
Yeah.
So that means we're doing roughly a couple $100 billion a year of VC and private equity money going into this sector. And so from an investment standpoint, Sequoia's point was, we have a problem.
Yeah.
We need to tap the brakes. But, I think this is precisely why everyone always has this. It's kind of a cliche, I suppose, but where AI is in the next year or two will be much less than we expect, but beyond our wildest expectations after 10 years. And so as an investor, it's really hard to know what to do over the next 5 years, because you don't want to miss out on such a revolutionary part of our economy. But you also can't just join, one of the $55 billion every quarter either. And I think that was the point of that report. It was an amazingly well-written report. Maybe we can post it in our show notes for those who don't have access to it. But they basically made the case that supply is already outstripped demand, and that it's only getting worse every quarter with $55 billion.
Yeah. The one thing I'll add, though, is there is opportunity, right? Is this going to be a big thing? It is. So what mid-market companies can also start doing is getting their workforce aware about this and not let them be caught by surprise, right? I think that's a responsibility that all leaders have, to say, how can we do our part in making sure our workforce is prepared for that future, and let them help us help shape that future, right? So many a times I've found organizations trying to do these AI experiments. Um, right now, it's a lot of productivity pilots and POCs to their employees. My point is, if you tell if you help the employees understand the potential for data and AI and Gen AI and help them shape that future with you, you're going to get a transformed workforce. You're going to get better solutions as well that will get adopted, right? Because the biggest barrier to machine learning in the past was adoption. You don't want the same thing to happen with Gen AI.
Yeah, it's really well said. I also read, I think, last week about the difference between small language models and large language models insofar as the number of niches that can be created with much smaller data sets and much more narrowly defined application. For example, you could have a small language model based on the tax code for an accountant, and the cost of building that small language world is a fraction. The power usage of that is a fraction, and the ability to make sure you can upgrade its, I guess, inherent wisdom and maintain the integrity of the information in that small language model is also lower cost. Tell us a little bit about how that world is shifting from large language models to small language models, and why is that happening?
I'm not an expert on that, so I'll put that as a caveat. I'm still trying to understand the distinction. But from what I've gathered, it allows you to so large language models are more generic, right? It's trying to learn the world, and it's more language based. It's predicting the next word in a conversation, and so it's not actually understanding the domain. It's just predicting the next word based on correlations that it's made or the graphs that it's created. Small language models actually try to get deeper in a subject, right? So the understanding is less broad, it's more deeper. So combine that with like the language ability of the large language model, you can get into more specialized areas, right? So for instance, we work with some industrial companies. There are very few use cases that impact the core of an industrial company today with the large language models, right? The large industrial companies still can use the LLMs, but again, for their finance function, their procurement function, sales and marketing, product management, which are like edge use cases as far as their businesses are concerned, right? Whereas when with small language models, now it can be more specific to a domain or to a company also, you may. It allows companies to actually build their own.
Yeah, to me, I mean, I'm grossly gonna butcher this, but to me, it just reminds me of software, and you could go back 20, 30, 40 years ago and think about operating systems that were out there. And in some ways, the large language models are similar to that. You have a coding language, and then all of a sudden, niche application businesses started forming around customer needs. And it could be that we're on the precipice of something similar to that, where corporate America is going to now be able to get productivity tools based on each division or function, as you just very well articulated. It could be a very exciting time to be an executive or an owner, in our case at Rally Day, where we can try to find those companies that are doing very special things and make sure that we can offer them to the companies in our portfolio. We could really be on the cusp of incredible increases in productivity in this country.
Yep. No, productivity for sure is a huge area where value is already getting created. I think the next foray will be how can you impact the core business of organizations, right? And that I believe is where you'll see a lot more of transformative businesses being stood up, right? Because today the easier thing is finance, corporate finance is corporate finance, or finance operations are pretty much similar across industries, right? But how do you impact a pharma organization's R&D practice with AI, Gen AI? Some of it has been happening with machine learning, but with Gen AI, is there a lot more acceleration that can happen in the drug discovery process, for instance, right? So I think that's where there's going to be a lot more of we'll start seeing breakthrough innovation over there in the next few years. And that's when we'll recognize the true potential of what AI and machine learning can do and Gen AI can do.
Well, you must skip to work every day, Poornima, and it's so cool that the last 25 years has prepared you for what may be one of the more seminal moments in our world's economy, and to be at the center of being able to help clients navigate what can be such a disorienting but incredibly and profoundly strong era for the world. It must just be. I bet you wish you could live till you were 150 right now. The world is your oyster.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm glad I stumbled into the data world, and I'm fortunate that I stuck with it, right? And I didn't, because my generation was also of that belief that you have to jump every 3 years, try something new every 3 years, and so on. I did do that, but within the same company. So I'm just glad I stuck to that.
Yeah, when talking with Nancy Phillips, who is obviously a dear friend, if not family member of mine now, and my business partner at Rally Day, she said, Ryan, I don't think Poornima knows how courageous she is. And we were driving somewhere, and I asked her why she said that. She goes, she's lived in a world dominated by males in the engineering world, and also not as an engineer, and has successfully been able to create that bridge, as we talked about earlier in this episode. How did being a female in such a male dominated field shape who you are today?
I'd say it is possibly because I never thought of myself as male or female. I just said, okay, this is the job to be done, and I have to do my best. I have to do it really well. I though have to give credit to my dad. I don't think he realized what he did, but every Sunday he loved to network. My parents both love to network, right? That's just in their being. So every Sunday we used to pick one family friend of my dad's and one older relative that my dad will go want to check in and see how they're doing and so on. So I used to be his companion on those bike rides. So one such trip to his cousin's house, and that cousin had a son and a daughter, both older than my sister, and I have an older sister. We're just two of us, and we used to bike to school, and it was it was about, I'd say, a 3 mile bike ride, but through a lot of heavy traffic. So that uncle asked my dad, saying, "How do you send your girls by bike?" Because he refused to buy his son. He refused to even buy him a bicycle to learn how to ride it, because he was worried about traffic and their safety and so on.
I've driven in Mumbai. I would never buy my daughter or my worst enemy even a bicycle.
You have to keep in mind this is in the mid 90s, so it was not that bad. Also, at least not in my mind, right? So my dad's answer to him was, "I have two girls; they are my boys, and I can only teach them about the world and get them prepared for the world. I can't prepare them for the world if I keep them, if I protect them and get them to sit at home. I need to teach them how to make the right choices, how to be careful, and let them figure it out, right?" And that statement of my girls are my boys, it stuck with me. I don't think he realized, what an impact it made in me. But I guess both my sister and I have been fortunate that our parents never stopped us from anything that we wanted to do. They always, let us make the choices that we wanted to do, even choices that we didn't. My parents wanted me to do engineering or join a bank because my family is full of banks. And I said, no. Engineering, I said, no, that's too much of hard work.
Oh, I doubt that. I doubt that.
So, yeah, so it's that mindset of making sure I just put in the hard work, do the right thing, and then right things will happen. That has possibly helped me. But my colleagues at Cognizant were amazing. They never treated me differently in my mind. I think there were only a few people, they treated me differently because I was not an engineer, not because I was a woman. They were like, what is a non-engineer doing in a technology field? Right? But later, even they recognized, I believe there are the industry is biased because everything is looked at technically without understanding the value, the application, the communication around it. And that's what I brought to the table, of saying, let's talk in English, let's not talk in technology.
No, that's really well said. We try to bring the podcast to an end with some advice for our listeners, and bearing in mind that some of our listeners are not founders, but I think widely acknowledge the power of thinking like a founder in their day-to-day jobs. We're going to do a little bit of twist on that. Having been in such a large organization like Cognizant, I'd like to find out what you learned about leadership there, maybe some of the characteristics of people that you followed at Cognizant. And then once you became a mature and I'd say powerful executive at Cognizant, what were some of the attributes of what you would call really high quality followers? And if we could just get sort of Poornima's view on the qualities of being a good leader and the qualities of being a good follower in service to our listeners, I would love to hear your wisdom on that topic, if it's okay.
Yeah. A great question, and a very profound question as well. Through my journey, what did I learn about leadership? One is being prepared. Doesn't matter what level you are in, what title you carry, always be prepared. And that has served me very well. Continuous learning, right? And not taking anything for granted. The third thing is you need all kinds of people in your team. There's not just one way to work in a career and building your career. I learned this from someone on my team, where when I was doing his appraisal while at Cognizant, and I said, hey, if you actually take on these additional initiatives, you can really rock it and you can, get a much higher rating. And he's like, no, work-life balance is important for me. I know if I do all of these things, I can actually accelerate my career, but that's not a choice I want to make. I respected him for telling me that, because I learned that lesson that day, that I have to respect everyone's choice on how they want to shape their career. So listening to people and understanding where they are coming from and where they want to go and how they want to shape their journeys is very important as a people leader. The last thing is, titles are more about accountability. It does not mean superiority of knowledge and intellect, right? So being willing to acknowledge that you don't know it all, and making sure you think that you don't know it all, right? And constantly telling that to yourself will allow us to learn from various scenarios, from various people, regardless of who they are, where they are, what they are doing. Helps us become better individuals and thereby better leaders, right? The followers that I admire are, like, I still connect with Francisco de Souza, and he's the ex CEO of Cognizant, ran the company for 25 plus years and grew the company amazingly. He's the one who actually was one of the persons who encouraged me in 2022 November, saying, you have a duty to yourself to reach your potential, right? Don't think about your career moves as a serial stages of life, of saying, go from one company to the next sized company and so on. Think bigger, and you've got a duty and responsibility to yourself to reach that potential. So I do follow him, I admire him. The other person who was very actually that gave me the final push into saying, yep, I can do it, is Malcolm Frank. He is also ex Cognizant, and he used to be the head of strategy for Cognizant, and then he was the head of digital. So when I was networking after my Click stint and trying to figure out what I wanted to do, we were in a call, and I told him, if I think that these are the gaps in the industry. If I were to start something, this is what I'm thinking about. Or I want to join a company where I can learn about, I want a company where I can learn and, keep myself on the learning path. And he's like, Poornima, 25 years, you've learned a lot about AI and data. Now it's your time to give back what you've learned. He's like, you can stop thinking about learning more. I think you've learned enough on, through other experiences. I think now you can start and lead. So
He gave you permission.
yes, and I valued his opinion because he's a huge thought leader. He looks ahead in the market. He can, he sees the connective tissues across industries and so on. right? So, I really valued his opinion. So he's another person that I follow, and he's got an amazing startup right now that's focused on empowering individuals with AI and Gen AI and so on. So yeah, but I the other person I follow is actually my mother, and it's a funny reason why. She's 78 years old, and she is the most curious person I know. She drives our handyman in India crazy. He's like a handyman who comes every 2 days, because if there is a crack in the house, in the apartment, she will want to go ask him 100 questions about why that crack happened, what caused it, how is he going to fix it, and she'll keenly watch how he's fixing it, so that next time there's a crack that happens, she's trying to do it on her own. So I was in India recently. There was a plumbing issue in one of the bathrooms. My aunt and uncle were visiting. My aunt said, a hand shower broke. I was like, wait, there's a plumber at home. And then my mom came. I said, this is broken. She actually fixed it.
That's 78.
She at 78, at 52, after my dad passed away, she actually went and enrolled in her office, her bank's computer course, and she stood first. She loves gaming. So she plays solitaire and Minesweeper, and she times herself to have her best game every day. And she can play that for hours. So I learn from her enthusiasm, her energy, her curiosity to learn and try new things, explore new things. And I'm amazed at 78, she does that. Her brother is even more wild. My uncle is 88, and he's still working in the cement industry. And he's trying to stand up a plant in India in North India for an energy company using IoT device. So he's learning all about IoT devices. He can't hear properly. He's got a hearing aid. He's 88, and he's still earning.
Well, when you said you weren't sure if you had the hustle to be a founder at PivotX, I think we know pretty clearly that between your mom and your dad and your uncles and aunts, that you're in probably a good lineage to be successful. At the end, you shared a really touching story before we started the episode about my dear friend Cindy Jordan. I think she was our second podcast
Yes.
For the Founder's Journey, and it was I'd been looking forward to it for a long time. She's a really special leader. But speaking of learning, what did you learn about from her, and how are you applying it now at PivotX today?
Yeah. By the way, I love all your podcasts. So I've heard all of them. They were amazing. What struck me from Cindy's podcast was something that she said. I think she was going through this wave after Rally Day had invested in her, and she had to shake up her team. And Nancy and she had a conversation about whether she also wanted to continue in that journey. And she made this statement, which really resonated with me. She said, I think it went something like this, where she said, in during that conversation, she realized that she had given herself the title of CEO and not earned the title of CEO. She was a founder, right? But the CEO title was something no one gave her. She just took it. And she said in the second stint, she had to earn it.
And
That's
wanted to earn it, and wanted to
and
earn it.
wanted to earn it, right?
Yeah.
That stuck with me. So I went back to my team, I think the following week or recently when I went to India, and I said, I need to earn the title of being a CEO. I'm only a founder. I'm not the CEO. I have to earn from all of you that I'm the right CEO also. So that's the journey I am on, right? Earning that title every day and building the business. But that really resonated and stuck with me.
That gives me goosebumps, and may we all have that sort of beginner's mindset for the rest of our lives, and the fact that we do have to sing for our supper every day. We have to ask to lead every day, and we have to earn our followers every day. And you are such a great example of all that is good in the world, Poornima. I'm so, by the way, grateful that you're on our board at Livefront. Mike's an incredibly powerful founder and a really cool business. And if we could get even an ounce of your wisdom, I think we can turn it into a pound of kicking ass. So very, very thrilled that we now are partners, and look forward to spending more time like this with you in the many years to come. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it as well. I'm really excited for what Lifefront can do and what we can do together. And I've engaged with Rally Day right now for, I think, since November last year, if I'm not wrong. It's been amazing. So I'm really looking forward to it as well.
I'll pass that on to the team, and thank you for that compliment. Best of luck, Poornima. And I'll be in the seats cheering you on. I'll have my face paint on, and I'll be yelling and screaming for your success. I have no doubt you're going to be amazing as a CEO very soon.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care.